and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sandra and this is Beyond Tech Absolutely, a place for understanding tech and creating exciting narratives around it. If this is your first time, welcome, and do not forget to share, like, and subscribe. And today I have a guest. This is Mr. Hilary Masuka, and we are going to talk about everything actuarial science and technology. So if it's something that you'd want to watch, stay tuned. So today we're going to talk about everything actuarial and technology. Us today is Mr. Hilary Masuka. Would you want to tell everyone who you are and your product in this space?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Hilary Masuka. I am an entrepreneur. I live in Montreal, in Canada. And I will probably just start by giving a little bit of context. I was lucky when I was younger to be part of USAP, which is the United States Student Achievers Program, which is run by a lady called Maimano. This allowed me soon after high school to get a scholarship to a liberal arts school in the United States called Hamilton College.
Okay, but you are Zimbabwean.
Yes.
Living in Canada.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
So it's a long story. I grew up in Chungwis. I went to school in Mazoe. After high school, that's when I went to the States.
All right, sure.
During that time, I studied economics and French as well, because in mathematics. So it was like, I was an economics major with a double minor in mathematics and French. And the whole French thing was kind of it was a study abroad thing. I spent a year in Paris during my third year.
Okay.
But during that time, sorry, I sort of cut you off there.
No, I wanted to find out, was commercials part of did you want to be in the commercial space, or because you had grades that would take you to the commercial space?
I actually was an MPC student at A-level, right? And so, but I later on thought I should have studied economics at A-level. But nonetheless, when I was in college at university, that's when I really started thinking, economics is, some call it the dismal science, but I think it's a very important discipline in learning how to think and how to sort of systematically organize, whatever it is, whether it's a business or even just any project, really, right?
Yes, because we hear people say, "Oh, Zimbabwe economy is bad," and then we really don't know what is like the aesthetic behind the economy. We just know the economy is bad, it's unstable. So what exactly did you want to study when you studied economy?
Yeah, so in fact, what I was trying to do, my initial goal was to study actuarial science. I think it's a very common sort of desire for students here that study mathematics to just want to, study actuarial science. It's a very attractive field in Zimbabwe, right?
What is actuarial science? In case someone is listening, they would want to know what exactly.
Right, yeah. So let's say you have a business, and let's say you can sort of do your costs and your revenue projections. So you can say this month I have 500 cows. I have sold 20 of them this month. This is how much I paid for labor, transport. These are predictable costs, right? And then not always predictable from month to month, but by the end of the month, you have your final numbers, right? The insurance business is a weird business in the sense that it's a risk business, right? So you don't know your final cost. Now you can only project them into the future, right? Because you're saying, for example, if somebody is in an accident, then we'll cover them. But you don't know the probability of an accident. That's a chance event, right? And if you aggregate that across many, many sort of cars, for example, you really don't know what it's going to cost, right? Although premiums are predictable, that's the revenue coming in. Anyway, actuaries focus on using statistics and probability to come up with the best estimates of how to run an insurance entity. So they're very mathematical people, they're very business-oriented people. They have to combine all these different skill sets.
So it's only for insurance, or it can run across a lot of stuff?
It's started to go into other industries. It's traditionally been just insurance, consulting, pensions, but now it's starting to sort of have a link with things like data science and
So are you saying actuarial science are the people behind my
Your
grandmother $20 pension that they receive? How would you calculate that?
Right, exactly. So
Uh-huh.
they have there's different groups of insurance actuaries. There are life actuaries, life and health, and then you've got like general, which is like cars, you know, property, workers' compensation, all those things. But an actuary in the life side would then determine how likely your grandmother is going to live.
Okay.
They have these things called life tables. They're literally trying to determine when you're gonna die, right? But part of it is just a projection of somebody retiring at 65. Let's say, are we going to pay them sort of patients? I'm sorry, we're gonna pay them their pension up until age 75 or 80 or 95, right? There are different costs, and then those funds also get discounted, right? Like money that's given to you tomorrow is different from money if it's the same amount that's given to you in 10 years, right? Like, because the other one is time to accumulate, right? So anyway, but actually it's tried, they determine pension rates, they determine the rates that people pay for all kinds of premiums. And just to give you some context, in the United States, insurance premiums across all lines of business, they constitute about 10% of the GDP.
Oh, wow.
So it's a massive operation. Yeah. And actuaries are like right in there.
Okay, okay. So probably you're wondering why we're talking about actuarial science, mathematics, pension insurance on this platform. But technology cuts across every industry. And here, Mr. Hilary Masuka has a very interesting tech solution that he wants to talk about with us. It's Zimbabwean, made for Zimbabweans by a Zimbabwean. As you can tell, he stays in Canada, but he's from Chitunguza. So can you tell us about your technology solution in the actuarial space? How it started, why you have it, how it works, anything that you want to share with us.
So it's been a very interesting journey since I graduated from university.
Okay.
So I spent a year abroad in my third year, and that was in France, in Paris, which was very nice. That was one of the best years of my life.
Oh, nice.
But one thing, there was an opportunity cost in the sense that, like, if I had stayed and focused on studying mathematics, I probably would have started taking actuarial exams earlier while I was at university, and probably started working as an actuary, because that's really what I wanted to do. However, it was a distraction that was worth it, because now I can speak French fluently. I'm happy about that. And the city where I live.
Say hello beyond Texolutely in France.
Mon Dieu, je suis avec la dame qui est derrière Texolutely, et c'est une dame qui est très sympa, et je suis content qu'elle m'a invité aujourd'hui. But apart from that, so what happened was, after I graduated, I moved to Canada, and Canada has, unlike the US, which is a whole bunch of insurance entities of all kinds of sizes, Canada unfortunately has a system where the big insurance players have sort of come together, and so these mergers mean that there's only a few big players, and they do agreements with universities where they take kids or students coming out of for attachment in their third year to work, to get trained as an actuary or an actuarial student. And then typically when these kids graduate, then they work for these companies. What that means is, however, it means it's a closed space for the most part. That's how I experienced it, where I'd been learning how to be an actuary and wrote 4 different Society of Actuaries exams, but I couldn't even get an interview because I didn't come through their university system.
Oh, and how different is it from that in Canada and Zimbabwe? Do they follow the same route?
No, but I'm going to elaborate on that because we have our way of thinking about it. But I would say what happened, I'm just going to finish the experience that led to this. So I got distracted by that, and I was, at that time I was working for a bank in Canada, doing fraud analysis essentially for a few years while I was taking these exams. But anyway, after all that, I realized I couldn't work as an actuary, which was really what I was trying to do. I sort of quit my job and I moved to a different city. I was living in Toronto, but I moved to Montreal. For different reasons. They speak French. I wanted to continue using it, but also it's a cheaper city to live because my plan was to use up any savings I had and I had like maybe 9 months worth of savings to by like Canadian living standards to basically I was gonna burn through them while I taught myself programming. That was the idea, yeah.
Okay.
Because I thought it was a completely different career change, right? Because I was like, I'm done with the actuarial people. They're not
You
giving
wanted
me.
to move to IT.
Yeah, so as I teach myself programming, it's valuable everywhere, and I could afford to do it, and I could afford myself the time. So I was reading like 10 hours a day on that, like just by myself, trying to like learn all programming languages and all that stuff.
And how is it? Self-taught programmer.
Very good. Actually, you'll be surprised now. I think close to 40% of programmers now are self-taught. So
yes,
it's not really a skill. I think even people like Elon Musk, they support that idea of saying, just teach yourself. And I think that's what I want to sort of talk about too, about, Zimbabweans sort of taking advantage of that, right? Okay. But what I eventually became very lucky because in 2018 I met a Canadian actuary who had worked at different places, and he had even worked on Lloyd's of London, and he was like, he qualifies in actuary in 1997, so he had more than 20 years of experience, and he wanted a tech solution for something that he was working on. Okay. So then it was the perfect combination of now I knew how to program, and I also knew, had somebody who had a huge Excel model, actually multiple Excel models that we had to sort of translate and put onto a web framework, right? Which is the most actuaries, they're learning Python and R a little bit in SAS, but for the most part, there's a heavy sort of usage of Excel, but that's not really hardcore programming, right? That's not delivering a solution, around the world, for example, right?
I still think Excel can do like 60% of all data analytics rather than the others. But it's a good thing. Like I told you, I'm moving into business intelligence. And I think Excel is way better. But yeah, you can proceed.
I know I have a lot of respect for Excel. And like you'll be surprised how many like millions of dollars of projections actuaries do on Excel sheets. So this is no way of saying that, I'm saying Excel sucks or anything like that. But I'm just saying, there's when you're a full stack developer, you're thinking more about how the data is stored, like, putting it into a database, you're moving it, using, across the web you got to think about HTTP and how it interacts. You got to think about when the data gets received in the front end, how it gets sort of displayed, all that stuff. So that's more like core programming, right? And most actuaries don't do that, right? So I was in a position where I can do both, and that remains the core advantage of this business. But anyway, at that time, when I became good and I was working on this, I came up with the idea, having gone through the exam process, I came up with the idea of trying to create something that automatically generates exam questions, right? And I thought that was a viable business because there's nothing that exists like that, right? Yet, there is sort of approximations to the idea, right?
So these are exam questions for actuarial.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So a typical actuarial question, to give a simple example first, we say, if a question says the distance from Cape Town to Johannesburg is, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers, I'm just guessing. And a car is traveling 800 kilometers an hour consistently. How long does it take to get there? You can calculate and find out that it's 10 hours, right? Yeah. So that's a static context, right? Yeah. So if you're practicing for that kind of exam, you might see that kind of question and maybe another variation of it, right? But what we do is we model that relationship. In other words, we make it so that if you vary the speed or the distance, you will always get time, right? It's a closed loop sort of, right? And so we instead of giving a question like that, we create an algorithm that can create a question like that. Okay. So it means you can run it like 1,000 times. But that's just a simple example. In actuarial,
you said what we do. You mean as actuarial or as your product?
As my company.
Yes. Right. Okay. So let's talk about your company.
All right. Let me finish this because it's related directly to why I think. Anyway, so that's a simple context, but in actuarial context, would have maybe 7, 8, 10 different variables that are all related using different formulas. And so what we do is we go in and we really zone in on the underlying algorithm so that we can create a question like that. Like like without any limits, right?
Okay. Okay.
So
Alright.
that's what the product does, and we do this across hundreds of questions across more than 10 exams.
So a person would then have to practice a particular question in different formats of it.
Exactly.
So
you
you
keep replaying the template if you want until you really get it right.
Okay, so instead of just practicing one question, you then practice different questions.
Right.
Wow, that's a great project. So you don't have to be stuck with one question.
Yeah, and then you want, fool yourself into thinking I got this question when maybe you just remember the numbers, right? Like every time is different. So if you keep getting it, then you got it, right? It's almost like people that play tennis, that machine that sort of keeps popping out balls, and then you're trying to it's that kind of that's kind of our machine, right? So by the time by the end of the day you'll be pretty good. So that's what we're trying to aim for.
Okay. All right. That's nice. That's nice. So this product, you said you want to talk more about the product. Why did you start this product? Because we already know that you're an actuarial scientist who quit his job, went to study programming, and then you decided to come up with this
and
product.
Combine the two, right?
Yes, combine the two in the actuarial and in the tech world.
Right. So from what I was just describing, it seems to me that this product would have utility amongst the actuaries, right? It seems to me like it's a good practice tool that you're gonna, rather than having a coach throw the ball at you and then having to go and pick up another one, it's just like an efficient way of practicing actuarial science. And a lot of it is just like practice to pass these exams. So there's a market for it, I think. We're now sort of like going into the phase where we're trying to push it out, but there's market for it because there's tens of thousands of actuarial students in the US that write these exams, and their current solutions right now are like PDFs for the most part, right? They're preliminary exams and the upper level exams, but for the preliminary exams, there's I think one or two tools that try to approximate what we do, but they're just firing things out of a static database. And that's not what we're doing. We're actually creating them on the fly. But that's the closest, I think. There's a solution for exam 5 and 8, which is sort of trying, but it doesn't have the complexity that it doesn't go as deep as we do in terms of like really getting to the core of the actual science concepts that get tested. So, so that gives you some idea. But the market we were trying to go for is in the US and in Canada. So these are actuarial science students writing these exams. For several of the exams, there's nothing at all that is like automated, and we're hoping to be first, and hoping that the first move advantage will be significant. Okay.
So you spoke about launching this product. Now you want to take it to the market, and I understand you mentioned there are almost 10,000 actuarial science.
Tens of thousands, I know. It could be more than 30,000, really.
In the America and the Canadian market.
Right.
Okay, so how then are you planning on rolling out this product to the actuarial scientists there?
So there's let me just explain a little bit more about the type of market too. So there are two distinctions you can make. You can realize that there are preliminary exams, which are typically written when you're in school and soon after. The content that you find in those exams is the same content that is taught at universities. And then after, a typical actuary also sort of branches out. You can either be life and health, or you can be general insurance. For the most part, that sort of distinction is represented in the US by two different actuarial organizations that sort of do the credentialing. So one is called the Casualty Actuarial Society, one is called the Society of Actuaries. But anyway, so across all, like the first few exams, they're sort of the same for both societies, but then they branch out. So there's at least 12, exams. For the Casualty Actuarial Society, you need to pass at least, I think it's 9 or 10, right? So anyway, there are some changes now also happening in 2022, and but nonetheless, this structure is relatively what it is. So we can target university students, the people writing the preliminary exams, or we can target working actuaries, which are the people taking the upper level exams. We are going for both markets.
Okay.
But we'll be introducing product by product, like for each exam separately, right? Although the underlying structure of the technical aspect, what can I say, the infrastructure is the same across multiple exams, and it's only getting better and better over time anyway. As we add more exams and we learn from, different iterations.
Okay. So how can people access this? Are you going to partner with universities, or are you going to partner with the insurance companies, or people can then just come to you directly?
So there are possible business models that I will not be pursuing at this time, but I think they're worth knowing anyway that we can do that, right? So one is universities, right? We can market them to universities. Then it becomes like a B2B business where we give them access to our software, and then their students can use it to practice exams. Or the universities can say, we want a tool that can automatically create questions so we can create exams for our students for their degree. We also have that potential. The other potential market in the future is insurance companies themselves, because our models are the actual models that you can take an actuarial academic paper and basically what's in there is how actuaries do their work, and what's in there is actually what we have been able to program, right? So you can actually do actuarial work. So one possibility is consulting work in the future for insurance companies, but those are not the markets we're targeting now. Because what we're targeting now is the consumer market of actual students that are writing these exams. So what we're basically providing individual tools for any of the exams they might need along the qualification path of an actuary. And we're now, the good thing actually, two good things actually happened to this business worth talking about from a marketing standpoint. So the first is that there's a university in Canada called Concordia University. They have a business school, which is called the John Molson School of Business. As part of their last year, they have to sort of form a team, people from different majors, like somebody in marketing, somebody in supply chain management, somebody in business technology, finance, etc. They form a team and they take a class called an entrepreneurship class. And what they do is they actually have to partner with the startup, and they create a business plan over the course of this semester.
Of that module.
Right, so for the business, it could be any business, any startup really, and it could be any different stage. It could be startup, it could be sort of in the scaling phase or like now in the growth phase. But anyway, they selected my company and they actually created a fully paged, the first business plan we actually had, right? So it made sense, and from that I was able to get a little more confidence, and there was an aspect of which relates to Zimbabwe, which is very important. Which is that they sort of wrote down potentially how programmers in Zimbabwe that have to know actuarial science and the programming language that we use can directly be useful into the creation of this product. Right?
So there's an opportunity for Zimbabwean programmers who want to be in the actuarial industry. Currently,
right. And Zimbabwean actuarial students as well, right? Who want to know how to program, do serious programming, not just like learn Excel, right?
And you're opening these doors for such individuals.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's possible because we already tested it on a few. In fact, I would say 60% of our current code base was written in Zimbabwe.
Oh, nice.
Right. So, and that's hundreds and thousands of hundreds of thousands of lines of code, right?
Both for the front, almost everything, really. The engine runs on Zimbabwean code.
So it's guys that I've trained here, and I know the model works. And then the product is still targeting an American market, but it's made in Zimbabwe, right? So I'm hoping we can scale that kind of, and we also have a cost advantage, right, compared to programmers in the United States or in Canada. And there's also a lot, as we know, there's a lot of very smart people that don't have opportunity in Zimbabwe. And so I'm hoping, if this idea works, it's a model that other people can sort of run on, right? Especially because we've got a lot of people in the diaspora that have access to, highly placed Zimbabweans, right? There's a lot of them that have access to to the problems that companies face over there, right?
Yeah.
Services that can be sort of created in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And I'm hoping the link between, getting guys here and providing those services and actually competing against Americans and Canadians and Chinese people and French people, that can be normalized in terms of as a way of thinking, right?
Okay.
Because there's no restriction, there's no border, really. It's like a guy can write code for me in Zimbabwe. I have it the same day. Is no different than a guy who lives next door doing the same thing to me in Canada, right?
Yes, definitely. So I attended the ICT conference, and the vice minister of ICT was talking about brain drain, on how the developers, the tech people in Zimbabwe, they're going to different countries for greener pastures as well. Yeah. And then they are coming up with such solutions that help those countries, obviously, because if they're paying you, and then here it's just probably the only incentive that they'll bring is probably on transaction money when they're sending remittance to their companies, and probably some of them settle there. So for you to come up with a project or a program or a tech solution that actually helps the Zimbabweans here and open doors for us to be in the market, in the map for the actuarial science is actually very commendable. And we would want, if you're watching, share this with your friends in the actuarial space. If you are a programmer who wants to also dive into, talk to Mr. Hilary Masuka. We would link his contact details in the description box or right here. Make sure you contact him, and also try to see that how other Zimbabweans are coming up with tech solutions with Zimbabweans in mind, but also for US and Canada. So like I said, when I started this year, no idea is going to be left behind. And today we have the giant, the first ever in America and Canada for actuarial science. So why did you start this? What was coming through your mind when you were thinking about this? Were you scared?
I came to Zimbabwe in 2018, and I feel like we are sort of disintegrating in terms of infrastructure. It's getting worse, and people are needlessly suffering. I'm not going to get political or anything, but it's just like, I know for a country with so much potential, and with the amount of wealth that exists out there, the model where we send money home using remittances, I think it's flawed. What we need to be doing is doing trade, right? Instead of saying, at the end of, I think close to measured GDP, I think close to 10% is money from abroad, just like coming in. But I think the model could be changed in such a way that, we use latent intellectual capital that is in Zimbabwe that is not being used to trade with people in the diaspora, right? And those flows, because now that's money coming for work, right? Like that's money that is being used to pay somebody for work they did, right? Rather than just saying, I'm gonna send money to my grandmother, and and if that's the only thing we're thinking of, or like to my younger brother, and you buy sneakers or something.
Definitely.
Definitely. So I think there was a sense of we can really do something, because there's a lot of people that have potential that are not doing anything, right? Definitely. And it's much cheaper to get a programmer in Zimbabwe than to get one in Montreal, for example. But it also does more social good, right?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to find out. So let's say I'm into programming, right? But I don't have the actual background. But probably I want to do a simulation of this in terms of, let's just say, ACA, the accounting platform. Are you also going to expand to those particular
adjacent industries?
Yes, or you're going to be only focused on actuarial science?
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody once advised me that when you're thinking of a business, you need to think of Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so Horizon 1 would be what we're doing. We're going to create multiple tools that automatically generate tools for different exams. And then Horizon 2 might include that stuff where in the future we might work with insurance companies to in a consulting role, for example, right? And it also includes that stuff where we might work directly with universities. And then there's also the question of, do we go into adjacent markets, right? Do we go and come up with a solution for SATs, for example, for mathematics and science that does that? Do we do an engineering sort of arm, right, where we basically apply the same things? Do we go into physics? Can we go into CFA? But CFA, I'm not a big fan of. I feel like it's a saturated market, and I'd rather do the difficult things.
That's the good thing about being a programmer. You like to do the crazy algorithm.
Yeah, because I know in Zim, for example, these kids can carry what I'm offering them, right? Like I'm taking somebody who's smart, who's an actuarial science student, use it. I'm saying, learn one of the hardest languages you can learn and model actuarial concepts, and then let's come up with a product, right? So I think that barrier to entry already exists, right? Because it's not like, it's not a business you can just copy, right? But sorry, I got distracted.
No, maybe I can also ask you another question just came into my mind. So can students at UZ currently at University of Zimbabwe studying actuarial science, can they also use the platform probably to exercise, practice for exams? Can they
in the future possibly, but right now the primary market is the United States, because it's big in the sense that, and it is the kind of market that can generate enough revenue that we can then I think the role that I would like the Zimbabwean programmers or kids studying actuarial science would be an operations role, like help us make the product.
Yes.
In the future, we might make the switch. We might look at UK exams, because that's a typical exam. Most Zimbabweans would write exams with the IFOA, which is the Institute of Faculty of Actuaries, which is the UK body, right? So they have a different set of exams, a different system. I have reasons why we haven't gone into it yet, because it doesn't, our machinery is too heavy for now. The American system is math problem after math problem. Like, it's just like, whereas the UK system is more like, sometimes it gets all touchy-feely, you're given a case study, right? So it's like, what we're trying to do is something that we can mathematically model right away, and the American system responds to that. But in the UK, we can also, we're looking in the future at doing that. That's part, again, of Horizon 2, right? That's what I'd say about. Sorry, I forgot one thing. This just happened to me a few weeks ago before I came to Zimbabwe. In Canada, we've got different sort of incubators, as they call them, right? So these organizations that try to sort of take a startup and then nurture it in the sense of helping with legal stuff and marketing stuff, and then sometimes there are pipelines that lead to the incubator, right? There's one in Canada which so I was just accepted into this pipeline, and it came with a $5,000 grant, Canadian dollars, which is about 4,000 US, I think. Like, that's just free money coming into the business. And then I'm also going to get this guidance on legal, doing contracts, like things like that, that may not be obvious if you're just focusing on product development. So that was a good thing that happened, like, for the business a few weeks ago.
Okay, that's nice. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And in case you're wondering, is it accredited? You see, there are companies pumping in money. There are people writing 50 pages of how the business is viable, and you are there watching, thinking, is it viable? I mean, you have to contact Mr. Masuka over here. So where can people get hold of you if they want to talk to you? Right.
For now, I think the clearest way, you can either, so the company is called Monadic Actuarial. So MONADIC, like a nomad or a monad. And what it is, actually, a monad is a structure in the Haskell programming language, which is what we use. We use Haskell to model the actuarial, which is also very innovative in itself, I think, because it's not even used by actuaries, right? But it has advantages because it's a very mathematical language, and we're modeling mathematics. So I like to say, we fight fire with fire, right?
Oh, nice.
but on the front end, we use a closure and closure script. So I would say so far, like so the name of the company, that's what I was leading. It's called Monadic Actuarial,
Okay.
and you can either reach us on Twitter, which is just Monadic Act, or you can send an email to info@monadicact.com.
Okay.
Right.
And do you have any words you would like to say to the people in the tech space in Zimbabwe? People who are watching this video, is there anything that you want to say? Yeah.
One thing I've learned, I mean, is that, Zimbabweans are very hardworking people, and we have a lot of smart people.
Yes, definitely.
And there's a sense that sometimes we sort of over-glorify the diaspora, right? We over-glorify life in the West, thinking, the only way out is to sort of go and live there.
Yeah.
But it's not even our society, right? I mean, at the end of the day, things like racism are real. Things like, discrimination, or people just not, even in the States, like a lot of, there's an issue of businesses that are lacking funding simply because they have Black founders, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's moves, like, there are things now that are happening to address that, but still, it's a real, like, if things were right in Zimbabwe, like, Zim is always best, right?
Okay.
So I would say we've got the talent for sure. We can target markets without leaving home, right? So we can target saying, we're going to compete with that company that does there in California, and we can actually do it, right?
Okay.
So, that's my final message. It's lack of exposure, I understand, because nobody comes and talk she's doing a good job, right? Exposing that, like, different ways of participating in this space, and that's really commendable, by the way.
Okay,
right?
thank you so much.
So exposure now, if we have exposure, and we know we have a lot of Zimbabweans in the diaspora that are in high positions that can actually observe services that we can target. We can come up with new ways that are innovative, and we've got the time, we've got the talent, and in the future, like, I want to do as much as I can to sort of support that kind of thinking.
Okay. Wow, thank you so much. Like, I'm already inspired and I'm so happy for you. We're going to contact him and get more information that you're going to get into this space. Thank you so much for coming to Beyond Techsolutely. And you had him. You can make a product, a Zimbabwean made, proudly Zimbabwean software product system, and it can be used in America.
That's right.
Yes, you can.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
No problem.
Okay.